Howdy, folks, and welcome to Cherrypicked, the show where we bounce around some free samples of an album and see which track might be the most appealing. My name's Cary Nightingale, and with me as always is Amazon.com. Let's top this Sunday. For today's episode, we've got Magic Mirror by Pearl Charles. Now, I've never heard of this artist or, of course, this album, but it just came out 2 days ago, and I found it when I was searching through the indie and alternative new releases on Amazon. And this is a really interesting album cover. It makes it look like it's very 1970s, maybe a little spacey, a little disco. I'm not sure exactly what to expect, but let's find out. It looks like track 1, and there's 10 tracks, with probably an average track length of around 3.5 minutes. Track 1 is only for tonight, so let's give it a spin. Okay, so right off the bat, we've got a lot going on. We've got the piano on the right, the harpsichord on the left. Almost gives it that. Anytime I hear a harpsichord, I always think about Stevie Wonder and Superstition. So interesting sound already right there. Very bouncy, energetic, probably danceable, and a lot of harmony vocals or background vocals going on. Everything sounds very sweet and very well mixed so far. But let's sort of continue on down the line. And that piano part right there is very reminiscent of Dancing Queen by ABBA. So if you are familiar with me or the show, you know that's a song from my childhood that sort of have that as a guilty pleasure. So Only for Tonight is already in contention to be cherry-picked. Of course, the first track when we listen to it is sort of always that way. Well, let's move on to track 2, What I Need. Because you keep on holding back, I guess then we both do. Very sweet vocals and that harmony with the rising pitch at the end. Sort of reminiscent a little bit more of, I want to say the overall sound here is like Fleetwood Mac a little bit, what little bit of them that I'm familiar with. But a more recent comparison, around Halloween, Kevin and I reviewed Wise Blood, one of their tracks. So a similar vocal quality there, but it's very appealing. I'm always a sucker for a sweet female vocal. Let's kind of continue on. And it's easier to live this lie than to tell the truth. Oh baby, I don't wanna lose you, baby. Okay, so this is a little bit more up-tempo than the first track, which if the first track were really like Dancing Queen, it would have been really energetic, but still a good way to open the album. I like what I'm hearing. If I'm really listening, really paying attention, I can hear some very subtle things happening a little bit lower in the mix. That's good. That gives it a little bit better repeat listenability. Keeps it fresh for longer. Not that songs really have expiration dates, I suppose. But let's move on to track 3, Imposter. So a little bit slower, a little bit lower energy coming down from the energy of What I Need. Let's kind of skip ahead a little bit. See if we can make out any lyrics here. Okay, so singing about the imposter from the title. So I think she's calling herself the imposter and looking for herself. This may be a reference to a psychological phenomenon known as the imposter syndrome, where someone lacks the confidence in their knowledge base or talent, but they find themselves in a position that they need to use those things. So a lot of self-doubt and questioning. I've known a lot of people who've sort of suffered from the imposter syndrome, and frankly, I've known a lot more who should have suffered from a little imposter syndrome, who had a little bit too much confidence. But let's move on to track 4, Don't Feel Like Myself.
I don't even feel like myself.
Hey, that was the title.
Some days you wake up.
That's a really, really cool effect, that slide guitar. It's so fluid. It's very versatile. That sound, when you're trying to add some textures, I'm getting the impression already, just a couple tracks, couple samples in, this is a really well-produced album. And a lot of it comes down to the composition, but a lot of it is, not so much just basic composition, it's textures, it's layers, it's putting things in that sometimes are subtle, sometimes are not, but it's very dynamic, and it keeps it fresh, like we talked about earlier, those things that you can hear on second listen or third listen and beyond that maybe you didn't hear the first time. And let's skip ahead a little bit on this track. Oh, that's a really nice, it is a melodic guitar line, and I think that was still the slide guitar, just alternating between two very close pitches. Gives it a little bit of a spacey vibe when you do that. It's a cool effect, and I think for something titled Don't Feel Like Myself, which follows up Imposter, I think that we've got a little bit of an identity crisis going on, and that spacey vibe from those, that guitar line can really enhance and reinforce that message.
A face in the mirror, your reflection won't look right.
And there it is again.
Too scared to...
It's a really thoughtful way of getting your message across. It's not just the lyrics, it's not just the words that you sing, it's everything else. This is a very thoughtful production so far. Let's move on to track 5, which is Magic Mirror, the title track.
You seek is inside of you. Magic mirror, tell me.
So a little bit slower, down tempo. We're getting into the middle of the record, and it is the title track. So this sounds like a slow ballad. All I can hear is the piano and the lead vocal. I'm not hearing the backing vocals, the way that Pearl's has been harmonizing with herself. Not hearing that yet. So this could just be sort of a mid-album, sort of a break from some of the higher energy and some of the, more dense texturing, which is nice, especially if you're going to spend $24 on a vinyl record, I suppose.
Sick and tired of being, my heart is blue.
So again, it sounds like even just in this short sample, that's really all we're getting is the piano and the vocal. It's very fair trade organic, but not quite my style, not quite my scene. Let's see if we pick up the energy again with track 6, Slipping Away.
With perspective,
We do.
There's never been a line between the past.
And again, that kind of spacey, soaring, very fluid slide guitar. It's not front and center in the mix. It sounds like it was at least coming from the right side. But again, we've got this sort of feeling of disassociation throughout this record so far. Skip ahead a little bit.
To say, don't make sense anymore. Don't make sense anymore.
Yeah, this is a little bit higher energy, this one.
There you go.
So let's move on to track 7, All the Way.
Been so long since anything more. Did we just forget just what they meant? What they meant. Is this what they...
So again, I think the hallmark of this album for the most part is going to be the vocal quality. Very sweet harmonization of all the vocal layers. It fills out the sound. It's really good. It's a really appealing sound. Let's kind of skip ahead a little bit.
We begin to doubt love when it's true.
What does that guitar line remind me of? It sounds like a slide again. It's a very similar guitar tone, I think, to George Harrison on My Sweet Lord. That's what that guitar reminds me of. So we're getting a lot of nostalgia out of this. It's probably intentional, because a lot of that is the production. It's the added melodies and counter melodies and things that fill out the sound more than the basic composition. But it's interesting. It's very appealing. Some of it's sort of memory lane. I think there's probably a deeper message behind the album that if I were really deep diving into lyrics, I would find. And I imagine it has to do with that identity crisis or the imposter syndrome sort of feeling. But let's skip ahead to the next track, number 8, which is Take Your Time, which we're not doing. We're just rushing right through this.
You're alright. It's gonna be just fine.
So again, this one's a little bit heavier on the keys. I think I heard the harpsichord in the left, again, the piano in the right. That harpsichord was dialed back. So it's made its reappearance from the earlier tracks, especially Only for Tonight that we heard. But it is a little bit quieter, a little more subtle.
Clouds will keep on rushing by. Nothing ahead. You know the sun.
We get that slide guitar again in there, which is nice. So that was track 8, Take Your Time. Let's see what Sweet Sunshine Wine is all about. So that's a near rhyme between time and wine, and then we get the perfect rhyme between Sweet Sunshine Wine and As Long As You're Mine to end the record. Let's see about the wine one.
Days, something about the way you move can't keep me away. You were working on.
I think I almost heard a little bit of fuzz guitar. That might have been a fuzz bass. It was a little bit low, a little bit of a deep sound, which is interesting. I don't think I've heard that yet on this record, that sort of effect on one of the guitars or bass guitars.
A weekday, you were dreaming all your life away.
Let's see if we hear the hook.
Sweet sunshine.
And then it ends before we get to hear the payoff of wine. So disappointing with these samples sometimes. Let's check out track 10, As Long As You're Mine.
News is clear. The end is.
So a little bit down tempo to close out the record, it sounds like. But again, very similar instrumentation. It's a very even, cohesive album as far as the sounds go, for the most part. Some interesting stuff going on, like the harpsichord only appears a couple of times, that fuzz bass only once that I heard.
Tears, no use in crying.
So this one is featuring, it's a little bit low in volume in the mix, but we've got sort of a church organ sound that I don't think I've heard yet on the record. So we're still mixing it up after all these tracks.
It doesn't matter.
All right, so that's been the 10 tracks. we've heard a lot of very nostalgic sounds, some parts in either melodies or the different things that have been played, the different instruments. Very nostalgic, very reminiscent of maybe other artists or other songs, like I've mentioned. But overall, a pretty, well, it's pretty. It's a very pretty sound. The vocal quality is excellent, but there's a lot going on. We didn't deep dive too much into the lyrics, but I think right now I probably need to take a quick break, cherry pick one of these songs, give it a full listen, and through the magic of editing, I'll be right back to let you know which one got cherry picked. Howdy folks, and welcome back. The track from Pearl Charles's Magic Mirror that I cherry picked was probably predictably the one that sounded a little bit like ABBA. It's track 1, Only for Tonight. I rated it as 7.8 out of 10 on the TuneScore scale. I really liked it. It is reminiscent overall of sort of an ABBA, at least that 70s near disco sort of sound. Very well produced. The highlights for me, production, layering, the vocal harmonies, the melody overall. Low light, if there was one, the lyrics. For being a 4.5 minute song, there's not much to the lyrics that fill out that scene or give details that really help you understand what's going on. Like, it's obviously about a one-night stand. And that is well conveyed. It's just not very full. It is well produced, and there's a musical interlude, and there's stuff that breaks it up and keeps it kind of fresh, even with all that repetition, though. So, again, the cherry-picked track, rated at a 7.8 out of 10 on the TuneScore scale, was the lead track for the album Only for Tonight. But I really enjoyed overall the sound. I'm not sure where or when exactly I would listen to this. I could maybe see it, driving around, sweeping the floor. Who knows? But it's good sound. I really liked it a lot. I'm glad I found it. It is a new release by what I think is probably a newer artist. So go out and check it out. Magic Mirror, the whole album, for yourself, and see which one you would cherry pick. Let me know down in the comments below. That's been Amazon.com. I've been Cary Nightingale. We'll see you in the next one. Until then, stay sound.